I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. Priests for Life takes a stand against the HHS mandate. Plus, did the Pope's butler do it? Insight on the Vatileaks scandal from the butler's lawyer. And Chick-Fil-A Appreciation Day brings out thousands in support of traditional marriage and religious freedom. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. 6 months ago, Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius announced that health insurance plans offered by private employers would be required to cover all federally approved forms of contraception, including contraceptives that operate as abortifacients, as well as sterilization. Well, yesterday the controversial mandate went into effect. A few religious employers are exempt under the HHS mandate, and some others may avail themselves of a safe harbor against executive branch enforcement until August 1st of next year. Priests for Life, an organization dedicated to galvanizing the clergy and other faithful in an effort to end abortion and euthanasia, is not protected by either exemption. Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priests for Life, has been a vocal opponent of the government's policy. Yesterday, he took a defiant stand against the rule, and here's what he had to say.
The issue is that as of today, as far as the government is concerned, we have to provide health insurance coverage for practices that are morally objectionable. In order to avoid the slightest semblance of scandal or compromise of our principles, and lest any employee should imagine that we would ever consent to provide coverage for actions that destroy human life, I want to make it clear to you today that we will disobey this mandate. Neither Priests for Life as an organization, nor any one of our administrative team or board of directors, nor I personally, consent to provide, pay for, advocate, counsel, refer, or in any way tolerate or cooperate with any process, plan, exchange of money or services, or any other activity that would enable a person to engage in the use of abortion-inducing drugs, contraception, or sterilization.
Well, earlier I spoke with Father Frank for more perspective on what prompted this bold move, how the organization will deal with steep fines, and to learn more about Priests for Life lawsuit against HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius and the government. Now, Father Frank, Priests for Life has joined 57 other plaintiffs in suing the federal government challenging the HHS mandate. And yesterday, you stated in no uncertain terms you will not abide by the government's directive. When did you make this decision?
Well, actually, we made that decision right from the very first moment we became aware of the mandate. And we were told, of course, back in the early part of this year that the administration was going to give a year for those who had religious objections to, quote, adapt to the new rule. And first of all, we don't qualify for the exemption. That's another story. But secondly, we said right away to the administration back in February, we don't want the year. We don't need a minute to consider this because we don't adapt to injustice. We oppose it. And so we were actually one of the very first groups to launch a lawsuit against this mandate. We filed ours in early February, and so we are actually the fourth of the 24 lawsuits involving 58 plaintiffs. Mm-hmm. And so and our case is moving along through the courts. Okay. And that's what we're doing.
And Father, help us understand this. Now, the mandate enforced starting on August 1st deals only with non-religious entities with religious objections, to put it as simply as possible without watering it down. Priests for Life do not qualify for the year that the government has offered certain groups to adapt to this mandate. How is that so?
Yeah, it sounds strange, doesn't it? Well, first of all, the administration says that religious groups are those that serve primarily just those of their own faith. But we, in saving lives from abortion, are serving everybody, people of every faith and some of no faith at all. So we don't make that distinction in our outreach to the public. That's one factor. Another factor is, and this is more for the legal experts to comment on, but this all involves sometimes some very complicated analysis of the particular structure of the organization, the particulars of their insurance plan, et cetera, et cetera. And in analyzing all of that, our legal team has come to the conclusion that we are not under the exemption, so that for us, the mandate has taken effect already as of August 1st.
Now, Father, you're looking at hefty fines coming forward. How do you plan on dealing with the financial fallout from this decision, should you have to pay those fines?
Well, we're not going to pay them. I mean, the government can send us all the paperwork at once, but they're not going to get one penny because the money that's been given to us has been given by people who want to see an end to abortion, not paying for it in any way, shape, or form. So, no, we're just not. We're just going to say, sorry, we haven't got any money for you, and then they're going to have to make the next decisions. Now, we don't know how these fines are going to be, what's going to happen in that regard. But there's even a more troubling aspect of this is that even as of now, before any fines are imposed, if we had not made the statement we made yesterday, clearly saying that we're not going to obey this, then we run the risk of giving scandal, losing our moral integrity, because people are, under the understanding, okay, the mandate has started, and if they hear just silence from groups like us, then they're going to say, oh, well, maybe they're finding a way to go along with it or to compromise with the government, and we want to make it clear that's not the case.
Father, who did you consult before making your decision? Do you have the backing of the Bishop of Amarillo? Do you have the backing of the USCCB? Who did you speak to before you made such a decisive decision?
Well, of course, we have been following very closely everything that the bishops have been saying and having many conversations with individual bishops. And really, we're all on the same page that, as the bishops have said in their own document on religious liberty recently issued, that sometimes these situations get so bad, and when legal remedies do not work, when the effort to communicate with the administration does not work, and the bishops have expressed frustration with both of those areas, then sometimes these things call for conscientious objection, and that, of course, is what we're doing. So our response was made first of all with an eye on, what are the teachings of the church and what are the bishops saying specifically, and of course, again, they're on this very same page. And then secondly, of course, dealing with our own internal structure, all of our board of directors, our legal advisors. We have several legal teams, as a matter of fact, that deal with different aspects of our work. And really, it was beautiful to see everyone's on the same page. Every single member of the board of advisors, of our staff, of our legal advisors, we're all agreed that this is not only the best remedy, but really the only one, because the government is being so intractable on this matter that they're really calling the shots in the sense that they're leaving us no option.
Father, you have been National Director of Priests for Life for many, many years. In that time, have you ever been faced with such a difficult decision to make that affects so many people? How is your staff reacting?
Well, actually, they're reacting very positively. In a sense, it's been actually a very easy decision. Not easy in the consequences that will result, but easy in the discernment, because we have always said, we're following the biblical injunction. We must obey God rather than man. And although some people have been saying, this religious liberty fight is, now we're dealing with an unjust law that we're going to have to conscientiously object, when you think about it, an organization like ours, and really the whole church, has been dealing with unjust policies all along. I mean, in the whole fight against abortion, we're dealing with the most unjust policy in Roe versus Wade that makes it legal to kill babies throughout pregnancy. And so we have always been operating under the stance that we're opposing an unjust policy, an unjust court decision, unjust laws, and that the only response, and really the bishops have already said this back in 1998 in their document, Living the Gospel of Life. They said, these unjust policies, not only do they not bind us, but we have a duty to disobey them. And so really this is an outgrowth of a long-standing position.
Father Frank, I'm so afraid we have to leave it there. There's so much more I'm looking forward to covering, which only means we're going to have you back on. But,
absolutely. But
for now, I do thank you so much for being with us and sharing this with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will certainly continue to follow that story as it develops and bring you the latest details as they become available. Stay tuned. The day's top headlines next. Welcome back. In tonight's headlines, a federal court blocks Arizona's ban on abortion law. A temporary block of enforcement has been made on the law, which has been referred to as one of the most restrictive in the country. On Wednesday, a San Francisco three-judge panel put the controversial law entitled Arizona HB 2036 on hold. The law, which was scheduled to go into motion today, would criminalize most abortions that are performed after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Arizona is one of 10 states to pass laws within 20-week abortion bans. Now to the Olympics now, where a swimmer from Aurora, Colorado is considering converting to Catholicism. Missy Franklin, a senior at Regis Jesuit High School in the now grief-stricken town, is the gold medalist for the women's 100 backstroke. Franklin, who began swimming when she was only 5 years old, claims that her friends and family helped keep her grounded. While at home, they do not discuss her life as a swimmer, but rather just enjoy the quality time that they spend with one another. "I have the best friends and family in the whole world," she told the Denver Catholic Register. Franklin is not currently a Catholic, though being a student at a Jesuit-run school is influencing her to consider switching her faith. "My experiences at Regis Jesuit have absolutely impacted my spiritual life in so many ways. I am considering converting to Catholicism. I'm currently Protestant," she said. And to whom does Missy Franklin dedicate her first gold medal? Well, to the state of Colorado, of course. For the state and Aurora especially, this dedication is quite meaningful, a beam of hope in the aftermath of tragedy. Colorado has lost hundreds of homes this year due to wildfires, and more recently lost lives in the mass movie shooting on July 20th. "It's such a terrible thing, and I'm so shaken by it," Franklin said of the Dark Knight Rises massacre that killed 12 and injured 58 others. "They're in my thoughts this entire process." And to China now, where the country responds after the release of a U.S. Freedom of Religion report. Rome Reports has more on that.
This year's report on religious freedom by the U.S. State Department singled out countries like Iran, North Korea, and China. The Chinese have responded, saying that the report is a product of Washington's arrogance and ignorance. The report notes that there was a marked deterioration in 2011, pointing to repression in Tibetan areas and the western region of the country, which is home to many Muslims. It also cited 12 Buddhist monks who lit themselves on fire in response to government restrictions on freedom of worship. Chinese officials gave their own response through the state news agency, saying the report was a political tool used to exert pressure on other countries.
Back in the U.S., a Black pro-life coalition calls for Planned Parenthood accountability in the death of a Chicago woman. 24-year-old Tanya Reeves died while getting an abortion at a Planned Parenthood facility in July. Planned Parenthood has long claimed that abortion is a safe option for women. Of the 54 million babies who have lost their lives by legal abortion in the U.S., 35% have been Black. In other news, the Pope prays for the respect of youth and for the respect of prisoners. Rome Reports has more on that.
Every month, the Pope invites all Catholics to join him with specific prayer intentions. For August, he has asked that prisoners are treated fairly and with respect for their human dignity. He also asked for prayers for young people called to follow Christ to proclaim and give witness to the gospel to the ends of the earth.
Next up, the president accepts an invitation from Cardinal Dolan. Rome Reports has those details.
President Obama is scheduled to attend the annual Al Smith Charity Dinner this October in New York. He accepted after being invited by the Archbishop of New York, Cardinal Timothy Dolan. The dinner is a yearly event and usually invites incumbent presidents as well as the nominee of the other party. In 2008, it was attended by both Barack Obama and John McCain, with Cardinal Edward Egan sitting between them. However, for this year, it's still not clear if Mitt Romney will be attending. The invitation to President Obama was a surprising move after Cardinal Dolan has been one of the leading voices against the White House healthcare mandate that requires Catholic colleges and hospitals to cover birth control.
Pope Pius XII. Now that name conjures up controversy with some, but to Cardinal Fiorenzo Angelini, he is a wartime hero and a saint. The Cardinal actually met Pope Pius in the aftermath of an Allied air raid. He told Catholic News Agency about the event, I had the unimaginable surprise to find myself immediately after the bombing near to the Pope, who went to the site of the disaster, where I was among the wounded, dead, and dying, he said. Since meeting him, he has always been outspoken about his support for the man who has gotten a lot of criticism for allegedly not doing enough to help the Jewish community during World War II. Pius XII helped everyone, Cardinal Angelini said. The Pope gave an order to open all the convents, seminaries, and monasteries. The Pope did his duty. And finally tonight, an Italian priest gives tips on evangelization on the World Wide Web. Father Antonio Spadero is responsible for coining the term cyber theology, and he is now trying to coach Catholics on the most effective way to evangelize through cyberspace. The question of God is a strong one, but we see it coming up everywhere, also in social networks. A desire for prayer arises, he stated. He wants to help Catholics utilize technology in order to explain Jesus Christ to the online world. His writings are available at his website. More currents after the break. Coming up, the inside scoop on the Vatileaks scandal from the attorney representing the Pope's butler. Welcome back. Lawyers for the Pope's former butler, Paolo Gabriele, continue to insist that everything he did for love of the Church and the Pope. The former personal assistant to Pope Benedict XVI is accused of leaking private documents from the papal household. Did the butler do it? Was what he did a crime? The answer to those questions will come from Vatican magistrates and a Vatican court. Now, one thing for sure is that Gabriele needs a good lawyer. Carlo Fusco has the job of representing the only person questioned in the so-called Vatileaks scandal. Who is Carlo Fusco, and why was he chosen to defend Gabriele? Rome Reports has that story.
Carlo Fusco is one of the lawyers representing Paolo Gabriele, the Pope's butler that was found in possession of confidential documents. Fusco is a childhood friend of Gabriele's. The two have known each other their entire lives. He says he was very surprised when Paolo called him, seeking representation, in a case that had taken international media by storm. For me, it had a very strong emotional impact, and without doubt there is a friendship and affection that binds me to Paolo. But I tried to be as neutral as possible for the sake of the process. After overcoming his shock, Fusco began to think about how he would defend his friend against charges of aggravated theft of confidential documents. Along with his partner Cristina Aru, the two began to prepare their case, including how Gabriele would handle his interrogation. The first interrogation was very short, about half an hour to an hour, because we, his lawyers, advised Paolo not to respond. We still did not know exactly what had happened, and we had to fully understand what we were talking about. The second interview lasted about 3 hours, and the last one around 6 to 7 hours. Gabriele has collaborated extensively since the beginning. Carlo Fusco says that Paolo acted alone, and theories of conspiracy or accomplices are absolutely unfounded. It's false as far as what I know from the facts. However, the judge did work for 50 days, and I only know the facts related to Paolo. But if these fantasies were true, the judge would have had other views, other questions for the only defendant, Paolo Gabriele. According to his lawyer, the only motivation Gabriele had for releasing these documents was to do something good for the Pope. His idea was to do something for the Pope. That's why he carried out a series of events that I can't specify right now, but will be in the judgment to be issued late next Wednesday, and it will describe these acts. But I can say that he wanted to do something good for the Pope. That is without doubt. Fusco says it's highly unlikely that Paolo will receive a full acquittal. He will have to stand trial, and if found guilty of aggravated robbery, the butler of the Pope could serve a sentence of 6 years in an Italian jail.
We'll be back after this break. When we return, Chick-Fil-A supporters fill restaurants across the nation to defend the company's stance on traditional marriage. Thousands of supporters of traditional marriage flocked to eat at Chick-Fil-A yesterday. It has been dubbed Chick-Fil-A Appreciation Day by Republican former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. He wanted Americans to support the company after its president said in a recent interview that he supports the, quote, biblical definition of family. Gay rights advocates were outraged, and some prominent Democratic mayors went so far as to say they don't want the Atlanta-based chain to expand to their cities. It's touched off a national debate about who has the right to do business in America.
It's chicken and fries with a side of politics. Some people are flocking to Chick-fil-A Wednesday for the food, others to make a statement.
I'm supporting Mr. Cathy and his views, his biblical views. And it's not necessarily his views, it's God's views. And we're just agreeing with him today.
Chick-fil-A President Dan Cathy recently made public comments in support of the, quote, biblical definition of the family unit. While his views do not necessarily reflect those of individual Chick-fil-A franchise owners, some customers who support same-sex marriage feel burned.
It's terrible policy and terrible business.
I just think that you have to be careful when you're dealing with the public, that you just can't get into any controversial issues.
According to a survey by YouGov, the controversy took a big bite out of Chick-fil-A's customers' perception of the company. But conservatives are applauding Cathy.
It has nothing to do with same-sex marriage or the issue. It's about religious freedom and freedom of speech.
So they're putting their money where their beliefs are.
They have standards, and I'm glad they're sticking to them.
The restaurant released a statement making it clear that it did not initiate the appreciation event, but thanked customers for their support. Our goal is simple, the statement read, to provide great food, genuine hospitality, and to have a positive influence on all who come into contact with Chick-fil-A.
And in Fargo, North Dakota, same-sex marriage is literally making headlines. Fox News' Krista Boehm has the story.
It's just the new generation.
This sums up the thoughts for Erin Hoffliger from Fargo on the forum's decision to change their policy and publish all legal marriage notices.
I just hope that more people will agree and be okay with it.
The controversy was sparked by a same-sex couple who tried publishing their New York wedding announcement in the celebration section, but was denied. With the new forum policy in place, some in the community are voicing their opinions.
They should be open to more things and realize that, you know, it's 2012 and there's a lot more openness and open-mindedness about it, that it's a good decision on their part.
But others are choosing to stand by their religious beliefs.
For me, marriage is God's design for man and a woman, and you can call whatever you want to a marriage, but marriage was God's creation, His design, and I want to follow His design, and I would hope that the community newspapers would support the Creator's design.
As far as the forum publishing it, you know, obviously that's their decision. I don't agree with it, so I would have upheld their decision not to publish it.
Whether you agree or not, it's a decision that the forum says is reasonable for the vast majority of the responses it received from the community.
And a group of conservative black pastors are responding to President Obama's support of same-sex marriage with what they say will be a national campaign aimed at rallying black Americans to rethink their overwhelming support of the president, though the group's leader is offering few specifics about the effort. The Reverend William Owens is president and founder of the Coalition of African Americans Pastors and the leader of the campaign. He's highlighted opposition to same-sex marriage among African Americans. He calls this campaign, quote, an effort to save the family. And that's it for tonight. Be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. You can also follow us on Twitter. Look for us there at currentsny. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. We leave you with scenes from yesterday's massive turnout for Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day.